guys, George here, and I'm gonna present to you another interesting video. Now, what is the video about? I've watched a couple of videos, one from Military History Visualized and another one from Chieftain. And Chieftain seems to be associated with a tank museum over in the United Kingdom. Seems to be a very knowledgeable, both of them actually, the fellow from Military History Visualized and Chieftain are very um, well versed in tanks and the history of tanks during World War II. And the two particular models that they compared to, I'm not sure what the attempt was to do, was to disprove the fact that the T34 was overrated. And if that is a fact or not, I'm not too sure. I remember when I first took a look at the original Squad Leader game, and the first three scenarios have to deal with the battle in Stalingrad. I looked at the T34 and I saw that in those particular scenarios with the basic game being, let me show you here with my little pointer, this one here, it seemed to be T34s versus Panzer 4s. Or Panzer 3s, a later version of Panzer 3s. So anyways, and at that game, the detail was very generic, more or less. It modeled the general a general concept of Soviet armor versus German armor, without going to the nitty-gritty details that Advanced Squad Leader does. Luckily, though, for Advanced Squad Leader, we do have the actual models, and the Panzer 3. Panzer Kampfwagen 3 Ursprung H versus the T34 model 1941. We have the actual units as closely a model to the real thing as we could. And when I mean to the real thing, I'm saying, again, there is a generalization, because according to the two videos that I watched as well, the T34, there were at least, I don't know, 100 variations of it between the time it rolled off the assembly line and later versions. And I'm thinking they had to probably adopt with the armor and steel because of scarcity of resources. Who knows, they may have thrown mud in the mantle while they were heating up the armor. I have no idea, but there appears to be a lot of variations, and luckily we do have some semblance of the actual units in Advanced Squad Leader. Now, the whole thing about the T34 being overrated, I find that to be a little bit of a distraction. I'll explain to you why later. Now, the two gentlemen, actually, both gentlemen, compared the two units based on 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say five different components. The first one being firepower, and I found the Panzer 3 with the 50mm version of the gun, and as you can see here, let me zoom in on the Panzer 3. There we go. I'm going to center it on the board right there. So we have a 50 millimeter, and there is a variety with the 50L, meaning with the L-type weapon at long ranges, it's more accurate. Either way, when you look at the two-hit table, I'm going to show you the two-hit table here in a Vassal, vehicle ordnance to hit. When you look at the two-hit table, take into consideration that the Russians are already using the red numbers, which are lower at longer ranges than the Germans are. Or, for that matter, certain other nationalities also use the black at the hit number. One thing to remember, though, in Advanced Squad Leader, the Soviet ATRs, the anti-tank rifles, or any other ATR rifle for that matter, always uses the black to hit numbers. That's a side point. So, and then there's additional modification if you have an L or double L type weapon. And for some reason or another, the Vassal counters that I picked up for the Russians are 76L for the 1941 model. Is that accurate or not? I'm not too sure. What I am sure of is that the Germans already use a block to hit number that is higher, more probable of success than the Russian. So in terms of firepower, 50 millimeter, and we'll see in the two kill table what does a 50 millimeter actually do. And if they had any degree of success against a T34, I would expect at least a 75 millimeter gun to be effective against a T34. So that was one. Now, the other thing that they emphasized was ergonomics. And they took into consideration that the bow machine gunner on the T34 didn't have a separate hatch. So if the tank was hit, getting out and abandoning the tank was pretty much harder. Now, with the little Soviet military doctrine that I know, perhaps that's what the Soviet high command wanted, was a tank that was very hard for the crew to escape. Either stay and burn with the tank, or without the option of abandoning it, period. So on the Russian side, on the German side, actually, they had a doctrine, and I guess due to the bravery of the crew, they always abided by it. 9 times out of 10, maybe. Who knows? The doctrine was, if you don't see fire, don't leave the tank. And I guess the incentive there is, you leave the tank, you're subject to small arms fire. You stay in the tank, there's no fire, everything's good. Anywho, with the Soviet military command, I believe they knew they were dealing with a conscript army. It wasn't a professional army. So they put in certain impediments for the crew not to escape. I'm just hypothesizing. Right. So in terms of ergonomics, sloped armor, as they said, does impede the crew from doing its job. And hence, this is why you see the white bar around the counter, meaning it's a restricted turret. We realize that. It is modeling facts, and this tank cannot fire with the crew exposed. That's why I have these guys buttoned up. Whereas these fellows do not have a restricted turret, and their crew exposed, so they can avoid the +1 modifier. Now, the other thing that they said was, well, sloped armor was not innovative. It wasn't innovative for the Soviet army, because prior tanks and prior productions of different nationality tanks always had some slope of armor to them. I would counter that argument by saying that there was some sort of math and calculus done, because they knew if they wanted survivability and the ability to have protection against German ordnance, someone did some math and figured out that they needed a 30 or 60 degree slope to thwart the German ordnance and have some sort of semblance and protection against them. And you also have to think about the fact that nothing ruins the morale of a attacker when they see their ordnance bounce off their target and it being completely ineffective. So you do the first shot, you see the shot bounce off the armor. Who's going to stick around now that you're exposed? Who's going to stick around and man that gun and try for a second lucky shot to see if it penetrates? You know already your armor doesn't penetrate. Your shot does not penetrate the enemy armor. Who's going to stick around for a second shot? They're going to get up and run. So in that respect, I don't think the argument about, oh, well, the Soviets were not the first to discover sloped armor. I think what we should be taking into consideration is that the Soviets actually did the math to calculate how much of a sloped armor they needed to avoid uh, having allowing the Germans to penetrate their machines. That's where the key lies in there. So, in terms of firepower, the Russians still have the advantage, although the quality of the ammunition might be questionable. 50 millimeters, even I have the book in my bookcase here. Heinz Guderian, in his book Panzer Leader, he mentioned that, hey, what are we doing here? Why are we going into war with a 50 millimeter gun? We need at least a 75. Should quote him. Ergonomics, we took care of that. Armor protection, innovation ain't the key. The key is do the math and get a vehicle out there that can withstand the pain that the enemy is trying to inflict on you. In terms of mobility, we do have mechanical reliability with a red number. However, across country, both gentlemen agreed that the T-34 and the Soviets had the advantage. Mind you, with the Christie's suspension, operating the vehicle while in motion was not conducive to a productive and effective shot. Apparently, the tank shook as it rode. Again, the objective here was get to Berlin. So, in terms of range and speed, the T-34 again outpaced these guys with only 13 movement factors. Now, surprisingly, both gentlemen admitted that the transmission on this machine was really hard to repair versus the T-34. However, in terms of starting the machine, we don't have a red movement point number, and that means they can stop and go as they wish. But once they go, they have 13 movement points versus 17 for the Russian. And that is actually modeling reality as close as possible. And again, in terms of optics for the sighting, the Germans could fire as far as 1,500 meters with relative accuracy versus the Germans with only 800 meters. That helps. Capturing German sites also helps. Mobility. Now, with these fellows having the transmission kind of hard to repair, in terms of bog checks, these fellows suffer an excessive speed breakdown. These guys have a detriment, but and these folks don't. But again, the 17 movement points, closely models what is the historical data, let's say. Communication. These fellows, the Germans went to war with radio-equipped tanks, and the Russians did not. Hence, in 1941, the year that we're particularly focused on, we have to use platoon movement. And if you look at the back of the counter, you have a little R in a circle, which means they're radioless. After a certain period of time, they do have a radio. Let me give you that year to be very specific. So whenever you see the vehicle note RF, this AFE has no radio in scenarios set prior to 1943. D14 is the rule. As of 1943, it is radio equipped. Hence, platoon movement prior to 1943. So with that said, and the important point that they brought up, and this is true across the board, is that to be combat effective, you need to have effective communications, because combat is a team effort. It's supposed to be a team effort. Everybody does their own thing. It's a recipe for doom and gloom. All right, so let's do a little example here, and we'll get it right. Well, I'm hoping we will. Um, I have a turn marker here. Thank you, Neil, for this beautiful organizer, and he has contributed a lot to the hobby. And we'll do a little example, and we'll use the road rate as well. So the Russians move first. They're coming in with a platoon of T-34 tanks, and they're going to meet up against actually two Panzerkampfwagons. I can't pronounce anything in German. I wouldn't even pronounce my own name if I was German. All right. Three Panzerkampfwagen 3s, Ausfuhrung Model H. Here we go. Rally phase, blah, blah, blah. Prep fire, non-movement. Let's go on to movement. So let's select these three guys. We're using platoon movement, and we can use the road rate. So I have to here. No fire. One to there. Move him up. 1.5. Still no fire. 2. 2.5. 2.5. Let's do keep track of this with our dice, or what my friend, my buddy does is he goes here and he goes MP allotted. No, it's 2.5. So don't forget, we're getting old, ladies and gentlemen. 2.5, and your instinct is, hey, look, I got a perfect shot here from this fellow to there. It's not really perfect, because what you ideally want to do is knock out the middle tank in a platoon movement. Not the first, not the last, but the middle one, because then before they can resume moving, this fellow or they have to meet up tail to head in that order. So ideally you want to get rid of the middle tank. So 2.5 to there. We're now at 3. 3 out of 17 movement factors. Let's see what we can do. Now at this point, this fellow can fire in the middle, and this fellow could probably, I don't know about that, trying to fire there. It's a close call. At this point, if I'm playing the German player, I'm trying to decide, is the shot worth taking? And with all the modifiers involved for movement, a moving target, they've only expended 1.5 movement points in my line of sight, perhaps. All the hindrances, unless I have an armor leader, the shot ain't worth taking. And we're now we were, I believe, at 3. A half, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3. 3 MP. Right. So I'm not too sure. I still don't know about firing. All right, so let's move on. At 3, 3.5. Still no fire. 4. Remember, we want the middle tank. Okay, 4. 5. 5.5. Now we want to do some math. Put expended 5.5, 5.5. Now we want to do some math, because this was a half, 1, 1.5, 2. We expended 2 and 3 to change covered arc, 3 movement points. And he is in his covered arc. He doesn't have to change turret. So at this point, at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6x range, we got a vehicle to hit. We got a 10 to kill vehicular target type. +3 for the hindrances. I saw 3 grain hexes. And then case J, we calculated 1 to 3, so it will be +3 for motion. Ooh, it's still risky. +3 for motion. Or case J. Would be J +2 +1 because they only expended 3 movement points in my line of sight. So that would be a total of 6 or 4 to hit. Now, 4 to hit, what's great about this tank is that it has a rate of fire of 2. And why does it have a rate of fire of 2? Because of the suspension, the comfort, the ergonomics, the crew can fire while it's moving, even in fact, and if it's stationary, it can load and unload a greater amount of ammunition, the T34, where they are more cramped and they're bouncing around, hard to pick up the ammo and load it. I heard by watching those videos that the best that the T34 can do is 2 rounds per minute. So it looks like it's a 3 hindrances, +3 for motion. I'm not buttoned up, and I can fire while I'm not buttoned up. So let's just confirm. Yep, 3 hindrances. So it's a 6 to hit. No, 6. 10 minus 6 is 4. 4 to hit. Let's do the 2 hit. 4, exactly what I needed. Okay, now it's a side shot, and this fellow has a 6 armor factor. Let's take a look at the to kill table. So 2 kill, we're dealing with a 50. I didn't declare APCR, and I don't have rate because unfortunately I only rolled a 3 on the color die. I needed a 2. Let's see, where is the 50? Not a 50L, I need a 50. There is no 50. There's nothing there, nothing there. 50, 50, 50. There it is, 11. 11. 11. I got a 6 armor factor there, so I need a 4 to kill. 7. So he first fired his main armament. I just realized something. I was using road rate, and they're not quick exposed. So to be quite frank with you, let's put these guys back, and let's recalculate our movement points. Sorry about that, guys. This thing is semi-live. So it's 1 to there, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to there. 10 movement points. It wouldn't have made a difference in our shot because we rolled low enough to hit. In a 2 kill as well, it wouldn't have made a difference as well. Technically, you could say I have an act there. I did recommend that they put put the label with the yak generation, but we're saying it's difficult to do. 10 movement points. I can intensifier, maybe, after another movement point is expended, but not at this point. And then platoon movement kind of Kind of sucks because it groups your tanks in one juicy target. All right, 10, 11. Now we can intensifier. So it would be 10 vehicular target type, +2 for motion, +2 for intensifier, +3 for hindrances, and -1 for the AC. So in this case, we got 7, 6. We got 5, 7 positive modifiers, 1 negative, 6. So it's another 4 to hit. Let's see if we can hit it. Hit 4. Nope, but we didn't bust a gun. And this fellow intensified. And another counter there. There we go. Delete. Flip to -2. So 10, 11. 12, 13. 14. 16. And now, at this juncture, what I'd like to do is stop. Go 17 to stop. And turn the covered arc clockwise for 1. So he's ready for any other shenanigans that they can do. And if I turn the covered arc here, it'll be prudent, I suppose. Would it be prudent? And they come through here, then these guys here, the other tank here is hauled down and can fire. So we got to cover our flank. There you go. 17 to stop. And basically, that's the Russian turn. So, let's advance it. Advancing fire, route. Did I want to advance fire? I don't think so. Advance fire, close combat, rally, and prep. Now let's see how these guys will fare. Remove all prep. Yeah. Let's remove all defensive fire. Roll for wind, nothing. Put this guy on top. Okay, let's prep fire and remove all defensive fire. Yeah, let's defensive fire. Let's see. Oh, they're not restricted with any crew exposed, non-crew exposed. But let's take an example and see if we can fire. So with prep fire, we'll try and hit this guy. Oops, hits the building. So this fellow here will roll on it to hit. It did not get rate. He prep fired. Okay, all fine and dandy. Let's go to movement and see if we put one of these guys in their line of fire, what's going to happen. So he starts for 1. We're in movement. Great. Starts for 1. Let's zoom in a bit on the action. Starts for 1. 2. Turns the historic cover arc like this. 3. And 4. Turning the historic covered arc. 5 to stop. And we'll declare defensive fire. So the first fellow that's going to fire will be this guy. This unit Bravo to there. So what do we have here? We got a line of sight with 1 hindrance. This tank should be a hindrance at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hexes away. So it's 10 vehicular target type. Look at the ordnance to hit table. 0 to 6 on the red, 10 vehicular target type, +1 hindrance, +2 for motion, would be a 7 to hit. I rolled an 8. So nonetheless, we get an AC. Put label Bravo. And we'll intensifier. There is no rate for these fellows. Let's intensifier. So we will have 10 vehicular target type +1 hindrance, +2 for motion, and +2 for intensifier. All fine and dandy. 5 to hit. Nope, still didn't get it, but we got a -2 AC. Flip. So he intensified. This fellow is going to turn his turret covered arc counterclockwise or clockwise. Counterclockwise. Yep. So that's 10 vehicular target type, +2 for the turret covered arc change, +2 for motion, and +1 for buttoned up, which is a factor I forgot previously. So 5, total of 5 to hit. 5 to hit, 2 hit. Nope. Shall we intensifier? I don't think so. So now we got a AC again for the second tank. Label Alpha. And we already know this fellow doesn't have any line of sight. Okay, so we turn it over to advancing fire. For advancing fire, we're going to target this tank. So it's 10 vehicular target type. Ooh, 10 vehicular target type. +2, +4 for motion. And that's about it. So 6 to hit. Hit. There's no rate in advancing fire. To kill, it's important that I note that I got a hull hit, because now the armor, the restriction that I'm using, the armor factor I'm using is 11. Okay, so let's turn to the chart. To kill, we're dealing with a 50, right there, 11, and the armor is 11. Good luck. Good luck. Ain't gonna happen. Unlikely kill. I need snake eyes. Close, but no cigar. So how could we have avoided that? It was probably show info. It's 1941. I need a 4 less to get APCR, and that might change things. But with APCR, I would have had a shot. With APCR, I would have had a sizable, a reasonable shot. So had I declared APCR in this case, with a 3, let's see, hypothetically speaking, what would APCR do? All right, 50. A 14, still a very low number. So the folks are comparing a Panzer Kampfwagen 3 Ausführung H to a model T34 to substantiate that the T34 was overrated. In Advanced Squad Leader, based on what I can see here, how can a Panzer III stop a T34 without getting at least a rear-facing shot with APCR? Here's my perspective. I think that folks are not looking at the forest, they're looking at trees. So what do I mean by that is, instead of looking at individual units and abilities, you need to view if the machine, the T34 in this particular example, if the machine was the right fit to meet the adversary against the overall strategic objective. And the overall strategic objective was not only to rid the Germans from Soviet soil, but to march on Berlin. Now, the other factor that you need to look at is which side innovated and evolved much more quicker to meet increasing threats and to reach the objective more quicker. And in this case, unfortunately, or fortunately for that matter, was the Soviet Union. And the various models of T-34s that have evolved over time, and the other tanks that came into production later in the war. Basically, the Soviets hit the nail on the head. The Germans did not. And if they, in any particular point in time they did, they missed the mark in terms of being timely to meet the ongoing Soviet threat. Having said that, when you look at the advanced squadron game system, clearly the T-34 is vastly superior to the Panzer IIIH. Now, to give credit where some credit is due, if you do look at the Panzer III counter, as it's depicted here, it is clearly evident that this tank was designed to meet infantry threats, not armor threats. In terms of armor, counter-armor capabilities, what the Germans did have that was a superior weapon, I would say, was the Pak-41. The anti-tank guns. Those were lethal, but not necessarily the Panzer III. There's a certain amount of romanticism associated with the Axis side. I never fell in love with that. But I can tell you for a fact that I learned my lesson when I first played my first game of squad leader being here, having picked the German side, looking at these beautiful or somewhat beautiful German machines. I thought I had a surefire victory until the T-34 circled around me, got a rear shot on me, and instantly destroyed my tanks. And if you're dealing with a plethora of tanks, you can imagine how the threat is increasingly against you. Now, how some people don't realize that, I can't explain everything, ladies and gentlemen. I can't. So having said that, 38 minutes in, I think I made my peace and said gave you my 2 cents. I think I've presented a very effective argument. But nonetheless, I want to pause and wish everybody a great holiday, Easter Sunday tomorrow. For those of you that do celebrate Easter, have a happy Easter. I hope the weather bodes well so you can all enjoy your celebrations. I know for a fact I got my first barbecue, my first place. I'm looking forward to assembling it on Monday and hopefully putting some tasty food on it and enjoying the day. Rain or shine, it's barbecue season. We don't have a lot of summers in our lifetime, I find, so take advantage. I hope you enjoyed this video. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, I don't have any time for negativity and hate. And if you don't like these videos, do yourself a favor, just go right ahead. But if you do want to watch them and give me some hate, hey, I got big shoulders, guys. Bring it on. So with that said, enjoy life, be kind, and looking forward to creating another video for you in the near future. Take care.